Yesodei HaTorah, Perek Hey Halacha Beis, in the Rambam. The Mamad Amurim. When is this? What are we referring to? B'shar mitzvahs. With regard to all the mitzvahs, there's an obligation of living by them. You don't have to permit yourself to be killed. Except for three major sins, which are idol worship, Yidaroyes, forbidden relationships, Shviras Dam, and killing someone. We'll go to the Peirush. These three that we just mentioned, which is idols, worshipping idols, or having a forbidden relationship, or killing someone, if they'll tell anyone will tell them to transgress one of these or be killed, he shall permit himself to be killed and not do it. So we see there's a fundamental difference between these three stringent sins to the rest of the commandments of the Torah. And on every mitzvah you have to transgress if someone threatens your death, but these three, it's be killed and do not do. The Rambam now states, when is this so that you are not permitted to permit yourself to be killed for other mitzvahs? When the going wants to just benefit himself, such as he forces him to build for him a house on Shabbos, or to cook his food on Shabbos, or he rapes a woman, as we'll see why that's not called an illicit relationship, to have a relationship with her. Then the woman is not permitted to kill her, to permit herself to be killed, not transgress. Because it's Karka Oil, and the Gemara will tell us. He questions one of the three major sins is forbidden relationships. And why does he mention the Rambam? There's a mitzvah that among those that he has to transgress. And he answered the Rambam that wasn't talking by a married woman, only by an unmarried girl, and there's no forbiddenness. And so he writes the Halacha Mishnah, because a goy who has a relationship with a Jewish girl, is not called forbidden relationship. But if he intended only to, the goy doesn't want to have benefit, that the goy does not intend to have benefit, only to make it a Jew sin. If it's between you and if it's between the person and there's no other Jews around, not only not another Jew, even there are 10, so it's not called b'fahesia in public. You should transgress. And if they forced him, if they did it in public in front of 10 people of Jewish people, then he's obligated to have himself killed. He should kill himself and not transgress. And this refers to any mitzvah at all. If he intends to do it to show you're not Jewish, do it. The difference is whether it's public or not public. Because if it's in public in front of 10 people, it's b'fayesi, it's chilul Hashem as well. Halacha zu, in this halacha, the Kesef Mishnah learns from the Sanhedrin 74a that in front of 10 means 10 Jews. But if all of them are goyim, there's no mitzvah of Nikdashti b'Seich B'nei Yisrael. I shall be sanctified in the midst of Klal Yisrael. Thus we see another difference in the mitzvahs, which are simple, regular mitzvahs. If the goy forces him in a private setting, or he does it in a public setting, then private setting is he should transgress and not be killed. But among a public setting is a mitzvah of I shall be sanctified. Therefore, he should permit himself to be killed and not transgress. And we go to the Rambam Gimel. All of the aforementioned is only not at the time where there is an edict against. In other words, they're not trying to convert Jews in mass numbers. Let's see what it says in the Peirush, meaning that you don't have to you don't have to give up your life for other mitzvahs, except for the three, is when there is no question of mass conversion. When there is, and that means that there shall become a king who is a wicked Nebuchadnezzar, like Nebuchadnezzar, the Chaverov and all the rest of them are like akin to him, and he will make an edict on Jews levatil datam to nullify their religion, or mitzvah min mitzvahs, or any of one of the 613 mitzvahs. Yorim al Yava, then there's an obligation to be killed and not to transgress. Afil al achaz mishar mitzvahs, even in just one of the mitzvahs. Bein nenas b'torach hasor, bein nenas bein lebein oived gechovim. Doesn't matter whether there are 10 people there or he's just he and the goy, you're not allowed to do it. The reason is, why is he mentioning Nebuchadnezzar? Because Nebuchadnezzar said you should bow to an idol, and everyone listened to him, and even the Jews as well. And there was a very great shame to the Jewish people. Until Hanani Mishael Azor came along, and they did not permit themselves to bow. When they were thrown into the fiery oven, and they sanctified Hashem's name. Shimon Yochai says in Megillah 12a to his Talmidim that the reason that the edict of Haman came on Yisrael in that generation was because they bowed to the idol in the times of Nebuchadnezzar. The Gemara Sanhedrin 93a says on the incident of Hanani, Mishael, Azoriah, the posuk in Shiur Shirim, where Shlomo HaMelech says in chapter 7, 9, Amati Ela B'tomo, I thought I would go up in the date tree, Oichazo B'Sansinov, I will grab many fronds. Tema Eli Yisrael, Tema is referring to the Jewish people, and all that was left was from them. I had to grab onto some of their fronds, which were the three, Hanani, Mishael, Azariah, which both thought all of Klal Yisrael would sanctify their name. Kiddush Hashem at the time of the Gzeira is whether they said one mitzvah or all the Torah, or within 10, or just between him and the Goy. The source for the words of the Rambam in these first three halachas in Sanhedrin 74a, as it's brought down in the Kesef Mishnah. They asked from Esther Amalka, why didn't she give her life so she should not be taken to the house of Achashverosh to be lived with as a wife? She was taken before 10 of Israel. Abaye answers that Esther, a woman, is considered karka olam, meaning that the man uses her without her actively participating. Rava answers that Achashverosh meant not to have her convert, but to do it only for his own benefit. The Rambam doesn't mention this differentiation between Abaya, that if the Jew doesn't do anything, he's passive, then it's permitted, or whether you do it with a active, like cutting wood on Shabbos. Chaim Brisk learns that according to the Rambam, by the three major averos, one has to be killed, and even when it comes to a passive setting. And what Esther didn't have to do so is because it was a non-Jew with a Jewess, and therefore it's not one of the forbidden relationships, such as a woman with a someone else from. If it would have been a Jew, it would have been forbidden, even if it's passive. The Kesef Mishnah questions in Sanhedrin, we find that when it's mass conversion, even on the slightest Jewish activity, there's an obligation to be killed and not transgress. Meaning, even if Goyim, if non-Jews tie their shoelaces in a certain way, and Jews do it another way, and there's something Jewish about it, you should be killed and not transgress. So you see, in the time of conversion, one has to give his life for being Jewish, even unaccustomed. In Rosh Hashanah, it seems that even in the time of conversion, only an actual mitzvah, he doesn't mention custom. And he answers, maybe the Rambam explains the Gemara, that when Jews did have a separate way of wearing clothing, it was because of the mitzvah of do not go in the ways of the goyim. But any minig which would just be a minig, for example, kissing the mezuzah, then Chas v'shalom, if you're told you can transgress and not be killed. The commentaries question if at the time of conversion, if the non-Jews said that they should not do a positive commandment, like they don't allow tefillin, so you have to be permit yourself to be killed and put it on. The Gezra Mishnah writes in the name of Yosef, you don't have to give your life for that. 2 reasons: because the goyim can forcibly stop you from putting on the tefillin, and therefore, what's the difference whether he does it with force or by holding your hands, or by tying you up, or by saying he'll kill you? Secondly, you're not doing anything by not completing the mitzvah. You're not destroying the mitzvah. Therefore, when Goy was running after Elisha Baal Knafayim, who was wearing tefillin at a time when they said they shouldn't, he took off his tefillin and he didn't permit himself to be killed with the tefillin. Because the Mishnah himself disagrees. He's the opinion, even on a positive commandment, you cannot sit back and not do it if it's a time of mass conversion. It means a proof from a medrash in Vayikra. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will ask, why are you going out to be stoned? Because I took, and the answer will be because I circumcised my son. Why are you going out to be burnt? Because I kept Shabbos. Why are you going out to be killed? Because I ate matzah. So we see that even on a positive commandments, because all these 3, circumcision and keeping Shabbos and eating matzah, even on a mitzvah, a positive commandment, he's obligated to be put to death. And what Elisha Baal Knafayim didn't do so is because he already did the mitzvah before that the goy caught him wearing tefillin. You don't have to put on tefillin, but you don't have to say Shema, but you don't have to wear it all day, as we don't do today. Furthermore, they discussed if a person is permitted to give his life up for death, because that's a midas chasidus, where from the side of the law you should transgress and not be killed. The lines of the permission that is permitted, and then I'll answer that all the places that the Gezra Mishnah brought down that they gave themselves to be killed because of a positive commandment, it wasn't an obligation, it was something that they took upon themselves. The Rambam and others are of the opinion that if the law is you have to transgress, if he thinks he was doing something special by permitting himself to be killed, it's as if he committed suicide. Therefore, you have to say that the Rambam is the opinion that even for a positive commandment, there is an obligation to be killed at the time of conversion, when the goyim are trying to convert. According to Rabbi Yaakov Emden, it depends if it's an individual non-Jew who's forcing you not to keep the positive commandment, and then even if his intent is to cause you not to keep the religion, even among 10 people, you do not have to permit yourself to be killed. But if it's a time of conversion, you must do it even for a positive commandment. He writes, even according to the Rambam, that somebody who gives his life when he's not obligated to do so is as if he's committing suicide. At the time of conversion, there's a permission for a person to permit himself to be killed. The Chodesh is the opinion at the time of Shmad, one has to be willing to give up his life even on a positive commandment. Gezra Mishnah questions. By Esther, it was technically a forbidden relationship, which is one of the 3 major sins which one does have to die for. What does Rava answer? That Achashverosh had his own benefit, his own pleasure in mind. Therefore, she didn't have to give herself up to be killed. What's the difference between the 3 sins or other averos? There are 2. You learn to say by other averos, if the guy is doing it for only his own pleasure, you don't have to give yourself to be killed. And he answers in the name of the Ramban that the explanation of Rava is Esther was not married to Mordechai. She was not a married woman. And he explains the non-Jew who has a relationship with a unmarried Jewish woman is not a forbidden relationship, because if he does it as promiscuity, it's only a gzeira that Bezdin Shel Shem said one should not promiscuous, and it's not called marriage. There is, and the forbiddenness is only not to marry them, but it's not considered a transgression of immorality, and which is such as the other forbiddennesses, and therefore it goes into the category of sins that you do not have to permit yourself to be killed for. Regarding killing someone else, it's different. The Great tells the Jew, permit me to throw you on top of a child, an infant, otherwise I'll kill you. So Chaim Brisker writes that the Jew does not have to give his life up for death, because the whole obligation that by killing someone you have to permit yourself to be killed is only because, it's not because your life is worth less than his. It's because why do you think your life is worth more than his? Therefore, you can't do anything to cause the other person to be killed, to save yourself. But he doesn't have to permit himself to be killed to save his friend. Therefore, if he sits and does nothing, he does not have to give himself up to death. And technically, if the guy takes him and throws him on the infant, he's not liable. Chazon Ish disagrees on Reb Chaim with the opinion that even in this situation he has to be Moisa Nefesh for not to have someone else killed by him. And this is the mitzvah of Kabbalah Ilma Shemayim. When a person reads Kriya Shema, he has to have in mind when he says Shema Yisrael that he's ready to give up his life for sanctifying the holy name of God. When he thinks so, it's as if he did it. It says Ki Olecha Haragnu Kol Hayom. The pasuk says we have been killed daily, every day, and with that you have mitzvahs, you fulfill the obligation. And so the Rashba says in Tshuva that every day that you read Kriya Shema B'chol Nafshecha, as if he was killed on Kiddush Hashem. Sefer HaMitzvahs, the Rambam brings down the Sifri, that on this condition I took you out of Eretz Mitzrayim, in order that my name shall be sanctified via the Jewish people in the world at large.